you cannot evict someone for non-payment of rent. The vast majority, I would say probably about 90% of the people still pay their rent.
You got to take care of the golden goose. You got to make sure the people are taken care of, the property's taken care of in order for the whole thing to work long term.
If you are a doctor, if you're a lawyer, unless you're in the office seeing a patient or dealing with a client, you're not making any money. But with real estate, talking about cash flow, over time, the cash flow builds up and your money that you worked so hard for and you invest, whether you invest in a partnership or you buy it outright yourself, that money is making more money.
Welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Quest. We have some fun and exciting guests, friends of ours. I'd consider you guys family friends. I'll give a little bit of background. So we hired Jonathan Klause as part of our team, kind of in the acquisitions and analysis, and then he supports that whole effort as we chase deals. And he comes from a family that has a lot of apartment experience. So we said, well, what the heck? Let's have some fun today and have you on as well. So we'd love to hear your kickoff story. I've talked to Jonathan a couple of times. I know you guys have some California multifamily apartments, but take me back. How'd you get into cash flow real estate and multifamily?
Well, my father was a machinist, just a regular blue collar working person, and on the side managed to, by the time I was in college, own 2 apartment buildings. And so as a family, we managed the buildings ourselves. When we bought one of them, it was a furnished building. And my job in high school was to unfurnish them. That means my brother and I had to move all the furniture out, throw it away. And these old, dirty, stained mattresses, stinking, horrible. And I vowed to myself, I will never, ever be in this business. Fast forward a few years, I'm in college. I went to USC and studied business. And at first I wanted to be an accountant. After my first accounting class, I said no. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Took a real estate class and I was hooked. And so that really kind of got me into the business.
Okay. So real estate class hooked you, but how did you pick multifamily versus, a different asset class?
I just got into it. Out of college, I worked as a broker for a period of time at Marcus Millichap, worked as an appraiser too, a real estate appraiser, and then at the same time was an apartment manager of a 16-unit apartment building. And so kind of learned all kinds of aspects and then just started doing it. Got into it and first for our family, buying some buildings. Then I went out on my own. And then back in 1993, there was the savings and loan crisis, which is probably bigger actually than 2008, and ended up losing everything. All of my buildings.
And the RTC, right?
Right. Back in those days, I was highly leveraged, young, just really growing and putting deals together. And so I took a few years and got out of the business and actually ended up going to seminary for a couple years. And I thought about becoming a missionary. And then when I got back, got married, Jonathan came along, 3 other kids, eventually 4 altogether. And then I thought, I got to actually support this family. So I decided to get back into real estate. And that was many years ago. And it's just been a wonderful journey ever since.
So when you re-entered the real estate realm, how did you get back in? What did that look like?
Well, my father at that time had a few more buildings, that we put together. And then, so he didn't want to manage. He was kind of retired, had a management company. And I just kind of looked and saw what the management company was doing. And they were doing a good job. It was a good company, but I thought I could do better. And so jumped in on the property management side. And then we started buying from there. And so, so it's been a really exciting journey. We have a portfolio of several hundred units, about 22 buildings right now. And
they all here in California, or where are they?
They are. So, a lot of people are like, oh, California, it has its good and its bad.
So when you say you put the deal together, how did you guys structure your deals? Like, did you guys syndicate? Did you guys have the money to fund it? What did you guys do to get those deals done?
Now it's all of our own money, own family money. Essentially what we do is this. We buy a building, we look for value add, something we can make worth more.
So is it like a distressed condition, or is rents low, or both?
Kind of both. It's usually someone who's owned the property for a very long time. The rents are really low, and they've kind of neglected it. They don't like to manage it. They're sitting at home or live maybe somewhere out of the area. And so what they want to do is just have their steady cash flow and not be bothered by the tenants. So the rents are low. The tenants don't bother the owner. They don't have to fix it up, and they rarely see the building. So if you look for deals like that, you try to find value, and you go in, acquire it at a good price, fix it up, increase the cash flow, increase the value, then refinance it, take the money, and go buy another one. And just kind of like a cookie cutter thing, the same business model over and over again, like baking cookies. You know, this deal, fix it up. Okay, let's go on to the next one, the next one, the next one. Cool. And that's been, you know, over the last 15 to 20 years, kind of our business model. And at the moment, the biggest, I would say, risk in this is legislation. You know, we have rent control now, statewide rent control, which is something new. You know, it's never been here before.
Last 5 years or so?
Last few years. And it's had absolutely the opposite effect on what it was supposed to. It's caused rents to go up and made it, for the ultimate tenant, it made it worse for the tenant, made it more pricey, more costly to live in an apartment.
Which is so interesting, because the legislation would think completely otherwise, you know, or, you know, rent control, meaning keep the rents down, but it forces you guys to kind of make that mark to market push if somebody vacates.
Exactly. So before, we used to, right now it's up to a maximum, there's a formula, but up to a maximum of 10% per year. Before that, we would increase, after you stabilize the building and bring it to market, 3%, 4%, 5% a year in increases. And then all of a sudden with this, we thought, well, what happens if the law changes again? What happens if next year we can't increase at all? So now you're trying to take advantage and raise it the maximum amount just so you don't get behind the eight ball, because that affects your value.
Yeah, if you're going to get caught in a worse rent control program, you might as well be at peak rents.
Exactly.
It creates like urgency to get to market.
Yeah.
That didn't exist before.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought about that, but it's interesting to hear that that's really what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now that, so let's say, are you on renewals going max?
We try to as much as possible. Sometimes we don't, but we look at the tenant situation and try to understand what they're going through, the quality of the tenant, their rent payment history. But sometimes you have to look and say, okay, if I keep doing this and they're there for 4 years and I don't catch up and something changes again, then I'm really behind the eight ball and you can't do it. We took over a building a couple months ago, and the rents were about half, maybe a little less, 40% of market.
Whoa.
And so, you know, we're still in the process of turning it around, but it's a very difficult situation. And the tenants are really, the former owners essentially subsidize them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's Section 8 that the government subsidizes someone's rent. This is an owner unknowingly subsidizing their rent. And the children inherited the property and then all of a sudden didn't even know there were rent control in the area. And now they try to sell it and, you know, they realize their value is much less than it would be because they never raised the rents. And so their decision not to keep rents at market ended up costing them significant amount of money when they want to sell the building.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say a $2,000 benchmark for a one bedroom. You're saying they're like $900?
We had one at $775 for a one bedroom apartment.
Wait, how much?
$775.
Holy crap!
Holy moly!
In where is this?
Northern California.
It's in LA County, incorporated part of LA County.
LA.
Yeah, that's a steal. You know, so then
It's free rent essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, it really is.
So then you would push $75, which would be 10%, right?
5% plus the cost of living to a maximum of 10%. Right now in our market, it's about 8.8%.
Because it's 5 plus CPI.
Right. So, you can never catch up if it's just that. So, there is...
So that's a significant value add if you base it on a NOI, net operating income from when they're charging $775.
So you have to, essentially, there's different ways to do it. You can buy people out of their leases. You can renovate the building. If it's in really bad shape, you have to put a certain amount in and do certain things. Yeah. And then you can ask them to vacate.
Non-renew their lease because you're going to go in and renovate.
Right. And now it's just harder to do it. So it's, back then, it's like the rising tide raises all the boats.
Yep.
So now you have to be smarter, work harder. You can still do it.
Interesting.
How was it navigating during 2020? California goes so crazy on this COVID policy. You can't evict tenants, can't really raise rents. How did you navigate that?
That's a very good question. So the first thing that happened was you cannot evict someone for non-payment of rent. So it was very interesting time to see human values. The vast majority, I would say 80 to 90, probably about 90% of the people still paid their rent, even though they technically didn't have to, and at least the ones we had, and they realized the situation and they paid their rent. So one of the very first things we did, we were the only ones, I think, in our region, as soon as COVID came and that law hit, for the next month, we told everybody that's paid their rent on time for the last 12 months, we'll look at your record, we'll give you a $100 discount for the next month. We were proactive, and just, we realized it was a tough time, and we were very blessed in the business and blessed with our tenants. Ultimately, it's about the tenants paying their rent. And so we decided to give back and benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we try to do that too all the time, try to give back as much as we can.
You got to take care of these properties and put it other ways. One of my good friends in the industry in manufactured housing, he was a broker, ended up, a very successful owner, operator. He's like, you got to take care of the golden goose, you got to make sure the people are taken care of, the property's taken care of in order for the whole thing to work long term. So yeah, I love that.
That's true.
So what's your target deal now today? Roughly what size of building? What are you guys kind of hunting for?
Well, I think it is a good opportunity right now. Interest rates are up. And with the fear of legislation, there's more deals coming on market. So there's more people selling. Prices have come down a little bit over the last 12 months. So we look at it as a buying opportunity. We target buildings from 16 to maybe 40 units. The largest one we have is a 100-unit building. Usually the larger the building, the more sophisticated the operator, and sometimes you don't get maybe quite as good of a deal. In that 16, 20, 24-unit range, somewhere right in there, you can usually, it's still a lot of mom and pop, and usually there's more opportunities in that range.
So in a way, the rent control is creating opportunities because there's an influx of supply now for you, potentially, of deals coming on the market.
There is. And a lot of people now are getting scared and moving out of state, taking their money, investing it out of state, a lot in Arizona, a lot in different places around the country. They feel they're more landlord friendly and are just tired of the headaches,
What do you think about that, though? I feel like you're going to sit back and let everyone leave and keep growing in California.
You know what? I'm always tempted to go out of state. For years, people were telling me, you've got to go to Arizona. You've got to go to Arizona. You've got to go to Phoenix. It's growing. Everybody's there. I know someone that owns some 4-plexes, 8-plexes in Dana Point, San Clemente area. And the market was very hot. And maybe it was 30 units, 40 units total. He sold all those for like 23, 24 times gross. I mean, just outrageous prices.
Right.
And with that money, was able to go to Phoenix and bought close to 1,000 units.
Holy moly.
I mean, he really increased his scale. So I looked at the market. I was there, and right after 2009, everything collapsed.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's go look at some houses. And so we went, and I took Jonathan with me on a trip, and we spent, about 3 or 4 days looking at walking houses, and you'd go in these beautiful brand new communities, nice homes that were abandoned, just completely empty. And it really was shocking, the devastation that the financial crisis had on everybody. And so we ended up picking just a couple homes up out there and, at very good prices, and then renting them out. A few years later, sold them and thought, wow, I'm so smart. I doubled my money. And then now it's like 4 times higher. And I thought, I'm so stupid. I should have kept him and I would have made more. But it was good at the time. And, the one thing I noticed about out of state, like Phoenix area, when I'm looking at the apartment buildings, people own them for short periods of time. They get in and they get out. They get in, they get out. The market booms. And then all of a sudden, developers come in, and it's very business friendly. So it's easy to get the permits. They build, and then the vacancy rate goes up again. And so it goes in these big waves. I notice in California, people that own their buildings own them for years, 20, 30, generationally. They buy and they never sell. And that's kind of our philosophy. And I thought, well, why? There's a reason for it. The market, maybe there's little ebbs and flows, but in general, it's still good, and it's a strong market, strong demand. You don't have that, very rarely, that period of time where all of a sudden there's a huge vacancy rate, so yeah.
It's just because of the growth that's over there and the rents and just...
Oh, you can't bring new supply on here.
Right.
Efficiently, like in bulk. Like, if you get a couple 100 unit development done here, I mean, it's just so much more rare. Mm-hmm. And then we need as many of those as we can get. And so the volume is so low. Whereas in Phoenix and Dallas and those markets, they have 10,000 units come on.
Right.
And like he said, the permit process faster. It's probably less expensive too. Like the permit process here takes longer and is more expensive. Mm-hmm. So it just, there's a lot of supply coming on.
Well, and then we have way more people. So in a way, it's a very defensive real estate play here. I'd be curious, do you think harsher rent control is going to come down? Because I feel like you already got something in play now and it's not really working. Are they just going to keep throttling down on rent control?
I think the politicians will try because there's more voters that are tenants. But the apartment association in Southern California has been very good at combating that and really demonstrating. If you really demonstrate to them, hey, let the free market take care of it. The market is the market. Mm-hmm. If you are going to come in and say, I can only charge so much, there's some areas, I think Santa Ana, where it's 2-3% max rent increases. Mm-hmm. So your costs are going up more than that. So you have insurance going up. Taxes are very, very expensive. You have utilities, maintenance, all your things. So what happens? You can't increase the rent. If you bought a building where no one's at market rent, you can never catch up. So you just don't maintain the building. Eventually, it's going to make the value of the property go down, the quality of the neighborhood go down. If you allow the market to take care of it and the owners are investing back in making their properties look good, it makes the neighborhood good, it makes it safer, and people are paying market rent. If you don't like what's here, then go to the next one. It's a free market. You can buy the kind of house you want. Depending on your budget, you can rent the apartment you want. If you don't like this one, go to somewhere else, But the free market always is the best solution economically, and I think for any community. And I hope they one day realize that. I do have confidence in California. I'm bullish on California because I think the pendulum always goes back and forth. We've had very conservative governors to what we have now is more farther on the left, should we say, and it's swinging back. And so I think eventually some of the policies that have led to homelessness, the legalization of criminal activity, people are realizing, hey, you know what, this didn't work.
I have a saying for Arizona and Texas where freedom goes, energy and money flows, which does bring an influx of development and all that new supply challenges. And we have some larger multifamily friends. So I love to go around and basically ask them and just call them and get updates on what are you looking at? What's going on in the market? And so in California now, though, what are you seeing opportunities in particular markets that you'd be willing to share? And then also, are you seeing the debt challenges? I know a lot of people have taken floating rate, agency debt, and it was so cheap in the moment. We got caught with a few deals. We were just lucky enough to value add our way out to fixed rate refi, and luckily they weren't cash in; they were just break even refis. So, are you seeing any of that?
A little bit, not quite yet, and that's you have to have the crystal ball where interest rates going to go. But it's we like to buy with debt where it's fixed for a period of time, and then that's usually 30-year money, but it's fixed and then it floats after that. So we've been so spoiled with really essentially free money. The interest rates for a period of time were so low.
Did you fix any low rates? Do you have any assets that have longer term 3% money on them?
The longest was like 7 years.
Okay.
We look at loans now and we say, okay, in 3 years, this is going to float. Here's what we are today, maybe in the threes, mid threes or so, really a great rate. So, okay, let's say if it adjusts today, it's at 6, our payments are going to be here. So let's take this building and see what the potential is. Let's make sure we're maximizing the rents, and whatever capital improvements are needed, let's do them now. So by the time it adjusts, we're not affected so much. We've, basically improved our way out of it. So we're going to be okay. But you never know. I mean, I know our president wants the rates to be lower, and he's a real estate guy. So I hope he'll, maybe the Fed, his term is up, I think, next year. So maybe someone will come in and start lowering rates again.
SOFR, right? The overnight rate at least.
Yeah.
And then treasuries will kind of hopefully follow suit.
Yeah.
I have a lot of broker friends that sell multi, and I have one of the bigger multifamily shops. A guy works in San Diego and another one in Phoenix. And I'm hearing that it's just now getting to where the banks and the reorg of this floating rate paper, basically they extended, or people bought rate caps on the floating rate mortgages they had. Mm-hmm. And so from a week or two ago, I had a chat with my San Diego broker buddy, and he said that he is now as busy as he's ever been. So he's putting packages together to take a ton of buildings out. And all these guys were sitting, waiting, hoping, praying for treasuries and rates to come down so they could fix rate refi. And it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So a lot of guys are upside down. And I think you're going to see an influx of broker activity from the lender side, where maybe they're not in like full blown default. Cause I think lenders don't want to deal with it that way. They'd almost rather short sale, where it's like, hey, as long as we get made whole, right, we're not going to pursue you, and the building's for sale. But like the broker's going to now have to like sort of interact with the banks. It's going to get ugly. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a wave of assets in the realm you're in. I mean, I'd say 20 to 100 units. The bigger boys, 200 plus units, probably are going to figure capital around that, maybe sell off chunks or recap with different private equity. I know other guys that have brought in bigger partners and sold off like their cherry fixed rate portion so that they could raise enough capital from the sale of that and go and fix their floating rate or their construction, debt issues. Yeah. So I think you're going to see an influx. I'm hoping that you get some shot at new builds, because there were a significant amount of 20, 30, 40 units that like went urban. Maybe they're too small. Maybe they don't have parking. There might be some of those challenges, but I think that those guys, you're going to see some of those deals come out.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. Yeah, I hope so. But you know what? I am excited as I'm learning a little more about mobile home parks that you guys do. Yeah. And Jonathan, on the weekend when he comes up to visit us, we talk about it, and it's so intriguing. I think it's really a great asset class that I'd like to learn more about, and I'd like to hear just a little bit more from you guys. What's happening with that and how you work and
So we started the company with our dad. I think I've told you one-on-one a couple, but we've always been busy when we bump into each other at events. So our dad built multifamily in San Diego. At the end of 2006-07, everything's basically tanking. All construction projects are stopping. He had come out of the ground with a 204 unit up in San Marcos that we still own and manage for that partnership. When dad passed, we inherited that piece. And so that he was out of the ground in 2005 with that, leasing up. That was like that moment again where like lease up was a total nightmare. I actually helped run all of the marketing efforts and like running the Union Tribune ads and all that stuff. That was his second deal that he had built, and basically rolled as much of his fee as the contractor in as equity. So he earned a stake in one building right before that, and then this one called Woodland. And I mean, stress to the max, trying to figure it out. Had to jump and basically close Comfort Construction at the tail end of that build out on that 204 unit at Woodland. And so he jumped and sort of kind of finished that, asked for a life raft option because the management company wasn't doing a good job on the fill up. So dad became a property manager, and with the partners he was building that for, he asked them kind of as a favor, let me run this. And that was like how he jumped from construction into property management in that moment. So we were sort of raised in teenage years in multifamily in that realm. And so we went in pursuit from there. It filled up, but it was slow. It got to where it was cash flowing enough to take out the construction paper, but it wasn't easy. And dad really owned a piece of it. But his deal was like in theory, when you filled it up, there was going to be enough of a refinance moment to be able to take his original partner's equity for the development out. So he owned this like 20% equity stake in this building. But the deal was he had to pay his partners back, and they barely got out of the construction loan. So now my dad is managing this, and the gross income's pretty low. So his management fee is pretty low. He owns 20%, and he doesn't get a dime until the crew and the investors are paid completely off. Yeah. So it was just like he was learning deal structure, trying to build. So like his hair's on fire, jump a few years ahead. They finished that. He's still the property manager, just earning a normal fee. The only building he's managing. That's how I'd say he's surviving financially. We, from there, start going to all these seminars on deal structure, asset classes, but we were still really pushing for multi. And so then Jen and I, and well, the whole family, we go to this Rich Dad education series. I think it's the one that they got, like the class, not the location, but the class that Robert and Trump got sued on. It was like right when they were starting to do collaborative, like Rich Dad education series. In that class, it was a 2 or 3 day seminar. I missed some senior year of high school to go to that. And I was hell-bent to go to, I didn't want to go to college. So like I was eager to learn anything. Jen was missing college to be there. We all kind of were interested and intrigued by the what we learned through the development of that one building. So in that, they bump into mobile home parks as a residential asset class to consider. And from there, it just like a light bulb went off. Dad loved the concept of a mobile home park because you only own the land and the infrastructure. As a builder, if you now with a 2005 vintage 204 unit, if you lose that to a fire or an earthquake or something, like the cost to replace that now is dangerously high, you know, like to where it's like we're talking about the other day, we're looking at our insurance, like what happens, it's gotta cost us like double of what we're buying in property loss, you know, like we're like, man. And so dad loved the concept of if a home or a few go, you just bring a new one in. So that was, I'd say then the fact that we could scale in mobile home parks, you have up to like, even in our value add mobile home parks, you have maybe 5 to 10% turnover. So kind of like a California multifamily it's very sticky. And so you have that steadiness and cash flow, and where you don't have a leasing agent. You don't really need leasing agent functions, at least at every deal. You know, so the staffing is really just an eyes and ears, make sure everyone's got their thing, collecting rents, any issues they have, they can bring to the manager. But it's easier to scale where we were at, which was just a few of us in the family, not trying to hire a big team. We needed it to, you know, generate a management company income to just live on for us,
Wow.
And so we started buying a 28 unit and in North Denver. That was our first deal for $600,000. So price per unit back then was still pretty low. And mobile home parks were early. It was early for the concept. Yeah. We've seen the entrance, and now I'd say private equity and institutions and pension funds, they're now full steam trying to allocate capital into manufactured housing. It wasn't the case back then. It was more guys like us. Like, you own some apartments, you own some storage, and I like the idea of mobile home parks. You buy some mobile home parks over the long haul. But it wasn't like this institutional game where I feel like we're all in a race to accumulate assets before the other, because there's such low deal volume. Can't build them. I mean, we know some of the guys that are trying to build them. It's not easy to fill them because the mortgages on homes are 10%, 10-year AM.
The person that's renting the space, they own their own mobile home.
Yep.
So you have none of the maintenance costs, the overhead, things like that.
The same structure that kind of comes up out of the ground and plugs into the home. That's our side.
Our key components now of due diligence are the electrical systems. Even when you have direct build electrical, overhead drop or underground, you have to survey that, because that's the big thing, because we have way more electrical infrastructure exposed.
Yeah.
So we have, let's say on 100 units, you got 100 pedestals, you have 100 drops from the main lines down, 100 meters. And if any of that infrastructure is real old or a significant portion, you're hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions, to repair that.
Yeah.
And then deal with the power company. So it's electrical, sewer, making sure the sewer's good, and the water. But those three systems, if you get them tight enough to where you understand them, you have them surveyed, and you can plan for the repair costs, our stabilized expense ratios are 30 to 35%. And that's probably 20% lower than multi.
It's a lot lower.
So on the front end, when rents are lower, because we're buying the same type of value add, where mobile home parks are let's just say the deal we bought last year in Anna, Texas, is $395 rents, and it should be $8. So it's kind of the same thing. It's 40-50% of market.
Right.
So on the front end, our expense load's heavy, but then as we get the income up, our expense load just starts coming way down. It goes into more of a long-term cash flow hold.
And how is it with rent? Is there any rent control in these areas?
So Arizona has a technical max on a renewal. So not on if anyone moves, it's wide open. You can go to market.
Okay.
But Arizona has a 10% plus CPI.
Okay.
Max, or you give them another notice. So it's technically not a max, and you cannot go any further. But if you do go more than, let's call it the 13%, CPI plus 10%, then you have to give an additional longer term 90-day notice that gives them access to what's called the home relocation fund. And they can tap into a grant to relocate their home into another community. But to your point with kind of the multifamily, where are you going to take that home? We're buying a home, or we're buying the community, and it's half the market rent. If they want to move it anywhere else, it's going to be more.
Yeah.
So then,
fascinating.
So then we'll sometimes do 16, 18% just because we'll never get there if we don't do a couple of years heavier. Like we bought some parks in Phoenix that were $400, call it, and we took them, now they're at like $700. So we did 2 150s. So percentage-wise, that's above that threshold. We just did the proper notices and everything. But we also went in and she beautified the clubhouse, the interior, exterior, the pool area, the signage. I mean, these things have never looked as good as probably ever. Even brand new. They're block buildings that are the clubhouses, pool area, pool deck. I mean, it's really simple, but it's there.
Make sure the residents have, follow the rules and keep their yards clean. And a lot of times, like when we'll take over these properties that just have been mismanaged or not taken care of, there's just junk everywhere around these homes. And so we'll roll off dumpsters and give people the opportunity to throw stuff away. So we clean up a lot of parks like that. And then it's easier to raise the rents because somebody is showing that they care about the community. We're giving them new life into their common area spaces. And it really kind of comes together.
something to that has been proven now, but we weren't sure how it was going to go. The homes in the community that are old metal on metal 70s vintage mobile homes, they sell for when we buy a community like that, they're around 10 grand. And they're honestly not that bad inside, typically on the higher end, 15, 20 grand of a 1970s, 80s home. Somebody's put some sweat equity and made it, trued it up. It's nice and it functions. But the $3,000 or $5,000 junkers, when we do the clubhouse and the signage and everything, that home now is worth 10, 15. Increasing the value of those homes that the people own. And then if we have evictions or something for the, I'm going to call it the bad apples, the clutter bugs that just have junk everywhere and they like living that way, we won't let them continue to be junkers and have stuff everywhere. Sometimes we'll end up with those homes because they still think the home's worth $3 grand. We'll put paint, skirting, fix up the interior, do the Home Depot special on the interior. We'll sell them cash quick for 30 grand.
Yeah.
We'll maybe have that in it, but
Fascinating.
But it keeps the home stock at that more affordable level. Whereas if we pull every home we get and put a brand new home in, we have to sell it for 70, 80 grand. Maybe 60 on the low end, smaller homes. We're still buying single wides for like 56, 60.
But I think it's fascinating because in the apartment industry, if you're raising someone's rent, it's not their building. All they do is pack their suitcase and take their furniture and then they can move somewhere else. They own this mobile home. You can't just pack up and leave.
When you evict somebody in our space, you're actually evicting them in their home.
And so then we'll typically make a deal and we'll buy the house
Okay.
and get the title so that,
Fascinating.
because if we have to go through an abandonment, it's like you left your car on my front lawn. It's like, hey man, you got to move your car, and then they don't, because they can't move it. And so we'll just say, hey, we'll give you $3-5 grand for the title because they're going to lose, like at that point we're down the road on the eviction process. They might as well take the cash for keys and the title.
We don't have to go through the abandonment process, and it's kind of a win-win for both parties then.
Very fascinating.
You're selling these homes. Are you trying to make maximum dollar on each home, minimum dollar? Are you trying to just break even?
We really are trying to get our costs out. That's really it. I mean, pay the team to sell it, if there's a realtor or somebody involved to sell the home. On the new side, especially, like if we can make a couple grand, like we have 27 grand in a house and we sell it for 30 and we make a little bit of a spread. It's been more and more clear as we've played this game. When we first got our dealer's license and became like we could do all things, manufactured homes, mobile homes. We now have flip crews. We're flipping like 50 to 100 old mobile homes right now in Tucson. So we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And the key is you want a better quality resident in the community, and we don't need to make money on the home business. Because if we do, we're now nudging the cost of the home. If it's a new one, obviously it's more. It's a newer house, 60, 80 grand. If it's a older stock home we've renovated and put enough money in to make it safe, because we'll rewire them. We're not gonna put our name on a home and sell it. Even an old one that could potentially injure somebody. So we have to go back through and rewire the whole house.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to it to make it safe. Then the HVAC systems, the gas heaters and furnaces, you got to make sure they're certified, because we don't want to ever have, for our faith, and being a steward of our communities and anything we touch, we go over and above to make sure that it's safe and it's not going to hurt somebody.
Nice.
So then we sell it at cost, because at the end of the day, the value is in the real estate. So we'd rather have them buy a good deal on a home
And keep it affordable.
And as we make the park nicer and nicer and continue to work our efforts on the community, their home is going to appreciate. They net that benefit. We want market rents. And so I'd say over the years, we got clouded, trying to make a couple bucks on homes when we were first doing it. But as of the last 5+ years, it's like, no, break even if you lose the set cost. In some cases, you're better to subsidize the home in place with a good resident and focus on market rents getting up to where they should be, because once they're clean and they're fully occupied, 95% plus occupancy, we're talking bond cap rates 4 or 5% still.
Really? Wow.
We sold a deal last year for 4.25 cap.
That's amazing.
And that's in place upside down on current, interest rates.
Well, I'm really intrigued with what you said about it increases the value. When you renovate the park, you fix it up, add some improvements, it increases the value of the resident. They are benefiting as well from this.
Yeah.
and gaining in their equity and in the money they have in their retirement, and it's good for everybody. Do most people recognize that when you go in and raise rents? Or are they still kind of like,
I would say most people do.
Yep.
It's hard to, we're actually trying to figure out how to measure that more effectively.
Yeah.
But like we have these great people that come up and then will just like completely cry about how amazing it is, how nice everything we've done is. And so like we do get confirmation, but it's hard to know exactly how many people like it.
We are trying to figure out how to measure that, but we also train our team to educate residents on that piece too. So like, you know, when rent increase letters go out and we're, you know, they'll come, you know, have concerns brought to the management out there, and it's like they listen and kind of help them understand that, like, yes, your rent is going up, however, you know, the common area has been improved, your community as a whole has been improved, and the value of your home used to be this and now is this because of all of this. And so, you know, rents are going up, and if you look around, like, we got to keep up with the market. And so the team educates them too, to show them that they're earning that equity, so that it gives them the opportunity, if they don't want to pay the increase, they can sell their home, take the gain. Our team even offers to help them sell their home if that's what they want to do.
As part of our dealer license, we end up having a kind of a roaming sales team, and that has to get fully licensed for the sale of mobile homes. It's a different, like realtors can easily go and do it as well, because it's not like a big training or anything. But a bunch of our teammates in the field are licensed to sell mobile homes because we do it for ourselves.
fascinating. Without moving, they're essentially getting a better neighborhood.
We're bringing the quality of the community up. And then we don't allow graffiti and crime and pit bulls. And, you know, like we're fighting that. We're holding the line and holding the standard higher. And so it's just, yeah, it's really an interesting realm.
Very, very cool. Well, real estate is, I always say, it's the oldest profession. Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created heaven and the earth. He was a real estate developer. He created this ball of earth.
Yeah.
And he made a garden, put Adam and Eve in, eventually kicked them out. And from that time forward, humanity had to create their shelter. They had to build homes, build schools, build homes of worship. And everything you do from the moment you're born till the moment you pass away involves real estate. Everything. And the vast majority of wealth in this country is from real estate. People have bought a home. And I remember as a boy still in middle school, we lived in an apartment building, and then my parents bought their first home. $37,500. It was in LA County, city of Downey, called Downey. You know, they lived there until they moved to Orange County, and it went up, you know, maybe 12, 15 times. And if you would have ever told them at this point, you know, this $37,000 home is going to be worth $500,000, no one would have ever fathomed something like that.
Oh.
So one of the things with me, I've always been interested in value and what creates value and how value happens. Because you take this house, it's 25 years older. How can it be worth so much more? You know, it's not a brand new house anymore. And you just see demand. And what I try to teach my kids, thrifty ice cream. It's now Rite Aid. My dad would give me 15 cents, and I would spend 10 cents on candy and 5 cents on a single scoop ice cream. Now it's over $2, close to $3. What happened there? Why is something now so much more? And it's really the time value of money, the printing of money, inflation. It's a real thing. And I look at a book I recently read. I found it online. It was called The Real Estate Boom in California in the 80s. Okay. And this was the 1880s. And I thought, this is fascinating. And you read about how it was developed, how people came in. They settled this area of Southern California and the prices they were paying for lots and then the building. And just to see now the value that's created, the amount of wealth. And you look back even to some of the biggest real estate deals in history, the Louisiana Purchase for, I think it was around 12 million or so, buying half the United States, and the Alaska Purchase. And these purchases, that have created so much wealth, and you just see over time how value has gone up. And sometimes I like to look at the history. Even we have one building, and we bought it years ago, 17 units for $735,000. And at the time of the purchase, I found a brochure years earlier when it was brand new, selling for $75,000, and the rents were under $100. And then now this building is $5.5 million. And you think it's the same building, it's depreciated, but the value has gone up. And I think over the long term, there's no better investment than real estate. We can be sitting here right now. People are paying rent in their mobile homes. People are paying rent in the apartment. I can be in Hawaii on the beach. People are paying rent when the first comes around. If you are a doctor, if you're a lawyer, unless you're in the office seeing a patient or dealing with a client, you're not making any money. You have to be there and actually putting the time in. But with real estate, talking about cash flow, like the name of the podcast, over time, the cash flow builds up, and your money that you worked so hard for and you invest, whether you invest in a partnership or you buy it outright yourself, that money is making more money. And that money over time continues to build and build and build. And so I think it's the oldest profession and it's the best profession, and everybody should be investing in real estate.
So what would you tell, as an additional cherry on this, what would you tell your kids now? Like, what's kind of your optics from your standpoint in life, having some good perspective in the long term, do you think?
Well, I say, everybody when they're young, they think real estate is so expensive and it's out of their reach. They can't afford it. But that's not true. There's always, first of all, you have to work hard. You have to save your money. If you're buying a $10 Starbucks drink every day on the way to work and then buying a $15 lunch every day, you're not going to have all that much money left if you're starting out. So you want to watch your costs, live within your means, save as much as you can, and then eventually buy real estate. Yeah. If it's too expensive in Southern California, there's other areas of the country that are more affordable. Areas in Phoenix are very affordable, and you can do it. And over the long term, I think it's a good thing. I wouldn't get turned off by it and say, oh, no, we're just going to be renters. You get no return as a renter. You get return if you own it. And so I would say work hard, but eventually plan on the first most important investment is your home. You want a place to raise your family, to live, and then slowly venture out. Maybe buy a duplex, a triplex. You live in one, you rent the others out. And if you get a real decent deal, maybe you don't have to pay rent. The tenants are paying for you, and you can save your money and then go out and do it again. With example, this apartment building, brand new, selling for $75,000, then $735,000, and $5.5 million. Every time I've done a deal, it is always, you ask yourself, you question yourself, am I making a right investment? It seems so expensive, gosh, what am I doing? And throughout my lifetime, I've never regretted buying a building, but I've always regretted not buying one.
Yeah, those are the deals you're happy you continued to pursue, even though the value, you kind of scratch your head over it. But, in the moment, when you had a chance for $5 million and then you buy it at 9 or 10, you realize, okay, you just have to figure out how to get it done at the pricing that it's at today. And then you'll be in the money.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks. Cool. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
This was very fun. All right, guys. Until next time.
Cheers. Have a good one. Bye.